I don't know what happened. I'm going to play the video.
And as you can see, we started off with someone in a robot suit, sort of that. And then we progressed dramatically year after year.
Looking good, guys.
So if you extrapolate this, you're really going to have something spectacular, something that anyone could own. So you can have your own personal R2-D2-C3PO. And I think at scale, this would cost something like, I don't know, $20,000–$30,000. But less than a car. It's my prediction, long term. Take us a minute to get to the long term. But fundamentally, at scale, the Optimus robot, you should be able to buy an Optimus robot for, I think, probably $20,000 to $30,000 long term. So, and what can it do? It'll be able to do anything you want. So it can be a teacher, babysit your kids, it can walk your dog, mow your lawn, get the groceries, just be your friend, serve drinks, whatever you can think of, it will do. And yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Come here, babe.
I think this would be the biggest
Come here. Come here. Festival Mama wants you. Come here.
I'll be 8 million people first.
Come here, baby.
And there's going to be easy too. And then there'll be decent products and services. I predict actually that this 80% will 80% will probably be good.
You're talking?
Look on the right side. Covers 80%. The cost of products and services will decline dramatically. And basically anyone will be able to have any products and services they want.
Come here, South the Island.
Yeah! Lots of rich people have it'll be something special. So,
love your hands.
Now one of the things we wanted to show tonight was that Optimus is not a canned video. It's not walled off. The Optimus robots will walk among you. Please be nice to the Optimus robots. So you'll be able to walk right up to them, and they'll serve drinks at the bar. And you'll directly, I mean, it's a lot of experience just to have humanoid robots, and they're there. So let's party. If you look at the gazebo over there, let's get the party started.
Okay, so we're back.
Right.
Well, my voice is like this because obviously we were partying last night. Apologize for that. But, you know, we had 20 bots there. That video came from Tesla Boomer Mama. As you saw, she was right there, and you saw 20 of them walking out. They did go walking around right in front of the crowd. Everybody can walk up. We'll show you some of those videos. But it is teleoperated, and that you are able to speak to it and talk to you back, but there was likely a human there that was super cute. Let's go that closer, but what was your reaction, Scott?
Okay, well, the first thing is we got to see the size of the fleet. So we had 20 marching out, and there were still others dispersed in other areas, like in the gazebo. There was another half dozen in there. And like I say, I was going around trying to look at the different numbers, and the highest number I saw was 48. And I didn't hear anyone else say that they saw a number beyond the 40s or something like that. Doesn't mean they don't have more than that. They still have a big supply, back in Palo Alto, doing something else. So as far as the walking, I think it's about the same state that we probably saw in the videos a few months ago. So it was still not walking at full human speed. They were confident enough to bring it out in a crowd, still making sure that you have these robot guides. Anyone with like the glowing orange ticket as a guest or lanyard as a guest, and the orange are basically the minors. So you can kind of tell who's allowed to get really close to the bottom. Now, every now and then they will let you get a little bit closer to do some sort of interaction, get an idea what the movement was. But what you're seeing is happening in the telerobotic controls. They get two ways of being able to do it. One is that they're able to get the robot to move. And when they're doing that, they're not doing any hand action. Everything is that someone is saying move forward, move backwards. And sometimes they use some flashlights to indicate where they wanted the bot to go forward or whether to turn around. And then when it was stationary, then they could go and start doing the overall movement. There was a little bit of movement in the legs, sometimes being able to crouch down a little bit, but not very far. and they would do some entertaining games amongst themselves. So we saw a couple of Alpine doing it, but it was just like one operator interacting with another. So this is Gen 2. It's pure Gen 2. There, a lot of people when you say, "Oh, it's a Gen 3 hands," like no. Everything there is Gen 2. So we haven't really seen any changes in hardware. We just seen that increasing the fleet, that confidence that we can bring it out into open, and they're not going to fall over. So definitely that's a big step. It was walking on flat ground, so I didn't have a chance to see whether you were attempting to go up the stairs or ramps or anything like that. And you had some that were walled off inside that gazebo, kind of like a little fishbowl that you looked at. And for the pouring of the beer, there was an Optimus that was behind in the closed area there to make sure there wasn't any direct contact, but be able to pour beer.
I'm going to go ahead and play this video because you can actually hear the bot talking to you. But like you said, it's tele-operated.
It's an operator's voice, yes.
And I do have the video of the hand that was just by itself, so you can actually see.
Yes, that's probably the more interesting development, because remember, right now, Gen 2 is an evolutionary dead end. They're not proceeding ahead with it, except for training and gathering data and understanding what's going on. But that's not going to be the bot that you're going to be seeing in the factory.
Let's listen into this one.
Optimus can talk?
Yeah. Go to the sign language.
Hey Optimus, what's up?
How's it going, man? Enjoying the party?
What do you think of the new Cybercab?
Cybercab looks amazing.
I know.
I'm trying to get a ride.
Dude, me too.
Okay, that's Omar and Joy. But Scott, when you hear the bot talking, I know it's a human talking to you, but they all sounded like the same guy. You went to every single bot; they had the same voice. Did you notice that?
Yeah. They seem to be rather similar. So that was interesting. Whether they were doing some sort of voice cloning or something like that to say that was there, but it was clearly being prompted by a human. And it was entertaining to see the interaction, especially when they interact with themselves or other members of the crowd. The movement seemed to be sort of okay. In some areas you can move well, in other places you get a little bit restricted. But there was one thing that was kind of missing, and that when you listen really closely to the bot, you're not hearing really the sounds of the motors. In the past, it seemed like you could clearly hear that. So it was a lot quieter than I expected. Even walking, you didn't hear like a clopping sound or anything else. Yeah, there's a lot of other party music going on around there, but even up close, it seemed to be reasonably silent.
Let's go ahead and play this and tell me what we're looking at.
Okay, so I was able to see that hand, but from a distance, because there was a fenced-off area which was for VIPs only. And in there, that hand was there, and so I could not get up really close to examine it myself. So this seems to be a video that was shot a lot closer, and we can see the tendon drives that are going on there. And it's rather interesting, some of the degrees of freedom that have been added in. So around the pinky, you'll notice there seems to be an extra degree of freedom that almost allows the palm to collapse in there. And let's say that's not one that was on my bingo card or anyone's that you would put a degree of freedom there. I'm rather surprised. It looks like all the fingers are still the same length. So I was expecting the pinky to be a little bit shorter now that they're kind of moving that direction. So that's the same. But remember, this is still kind of in a prototype lab bench mode. Everyone's trying to count the degrees of freedom, and they can't quite get to 22. It's like either 21 or 23. We're not sure where it is, because that pinky throws us off. There seems to be this extra degree of freedom right down that part, and that seems to almost drive it up. So the thumb has added an extra knuckle, so it's full 4 DOF. All the other fingers are full 4 DOF that are there. So you have basically 4 times 5. That gives you 20 right there. And the other two are the movement that you have in the wrist. Now, if you look really closely, you can kind of sneakily see in there, they kind of still have the same design for being able to do the wrist. It's just that they move the actuators around. So it's a little bit behind. If you look really closely, you can begin to see it. But you can see where this carpal tunnel is, where they have these different sheets of tendons. Now, these tendons, I guess you can say, are more like human-like tendons. They're not wires. In the past, you had an actuator with a wire that went up that was not in any kind of sheath. So it would just go over a couple of pulleys to get out to where it was supposed to be. Now you have to do that. So it's more like a bicycle cable. It's akin to that. You can see them in there, and you can see how they're kind of tied together to be able to get the control that's going around in the routing unit. The thing that surprised me is that the initial count was, they're going from currently 6 actuators probably to 7, because the hand is going to be doing this and you can't do this. But there were some images that we saw of the hand actually like that. And that means you've got individual control of each of the abduction of those things. So that means you're going to at least 7 or 10 actuators. When you start to count the number of tendons that are there, it's a much higher number than I was expecting. I think I ended up counting at least 11, which sort of shocked me. Maybe the 11th one is because of what's going on with the thinking. So again, it's like, wait a minute, maybe it's a 23 DOF hand. And now we have like one more degree of freedom hidden down there, and that is this roll that we're not really counting into the handoffs. The question is where you do it. So you saw that whole structure was rolling around, and you're kind of looking closely, and you are seeing these very simple things that are able to pull down. And I wonder if they come up with a really good compact actuator, almost like the actuator that I'm looking for, something that can just make a really good pulling force on something you just release. And it's a very akin to a solenoid, but all the research available to do with solenoids, they would say you just can't get the controller to do that. It's just the solenoid is more like an on-off thing, but they may have been able to come up with something that seems to be compact. You really yank on that thing, and yank on with some sort of controlled force to get what you want, and then just release it back on up. It's hard to tell whether some of the tendons are to go the first direction. I think it's all kind of pulling, and then it's able to pop it back up. So it's rather interesting. At first, I wasn't sure if that was actually the 23 DOF hands. I wasn't expecting to look like that.
No, it is. So what happened was,
it is, yeah.
I actually was able to speak to a Tesla bot AI engineer and ask them a few questions. I spoke to them for 10 minutes long. First question I asked them was that, Elon deciding to move to this new forearm-based hand, that there are criticisms from other bot companies who are saying that is going to be a dead end for Tesla, because if you go that route, instead of doing the actuators in the hand, you lose the ability to go 90 degrees like this. I'm sorry, that's it, 90 degrees like that. You lose the ability to carry 50 pounds.
It looks like they may be able to.
And you might break the tendons. But you can see from this design, they've solved it. What the Tesla AI robotics engineer told me is that, just like what you would expect Elon to say, well, humans can do this. So if you look at this hand, they've solved it. Tesla solved this.
They took sort of the original wrist design, because if you look back, they may have really made those actuators compact. So if we go, it's very hard to see, but if we look at any of the images that we have of the Gen 2 Optimus, so there are these big black actuators off on the forearm that have these push-pull rods. So yeah, when you look really closely in the wrist, you see that so they may have made them small because they're sneakily back there. So you have that same kind of wrist design, which is this kind of hard joint where you have a pitch axis. If you look really closely in where the wrist is, you can see where the pitch axis is, and you can see where the yaw axis is in the new hand. And through there, they've done the routing, the carpal tunnel, where you get that little packaging, and you can see where they're taking these different tendon groups that they package together that are going off at different angles. So they got some over here. It's like, we got to run out this group over here to the the index finger, and one to the middle finger, or something like that. So they're all somewhere else running them through, and they found the gap. But at the same time, they managed to look like economize the size of the actuators there. So the wrist movement is not being done through tendon control. It's still using those stiff push-pull rods in there, because they may have come up with a new novel linear actuator design that not only makes it compact for them to be able to do this, but potentially also on the tendons that they're going to have, that if you're able to come up with something that is very thin, you might put it in there. So at first it was hard to tell from the distance, because around, I think that part of it, they almost look like haunted mansions that are around there. So I think this is like a Halloween plot.
No, it was good.
You'll see those things sometimes, and especially when you see all those walking, it looks like those are like must be hydraulics or pneumatics, and then buried underneath there is like this really big box with all the stuff you need to control it. But really close examination, you can see that the motors are there. It doesn't look like they're hidden underneath. It looks like they really are there in the forearm. Now the forearm seems to be maybe a little bit bulkier, but this is still a prototype, because they need to leave some room for those things to go around, and they kind of work the packaging. I think they may be able to improve the packaging by moving some of it still down the forearm. I don't know how much they have between the elbow and up here, but it seems like they're only using like 1/3 of the forearm from what we're seeing there, but they could be using maybe a little bit more.
So first of all, 20 bots walking around, everybody's interacting with them. They're walking pretty nicely. Yes, they were teleoperated. Here's the bot serving drinks. So this just shows you that if you can do this.
Hi, Optimus.
Hello. How are you doing?
Doing good. Which one has the most calories?
I don't really know.
No? Well, which one?
I think this one might have more calories.
Yeah. I'll do the other one then.
Sure.
Thank you, Optimus.
No problem. You enjoy it.
All the same calories, it's all the same.
That was Bradford Ferguson. So you see that the voice of this one is obviously a human, and it's obviously a different human than the previous ones, right? But they were out there, they're interacting with humans. So how did they do that, Scott? Because I had spoken to another humanoid bot company, and they said that they cannot allow the bots to walk freely amongst other people and serving drinks to them yet, until they get cobot certified, until they get certified that they're allowed to do that.
And as Kafka asked, because why can they not get robot cobot certification?
Yeah. So how did they do though? Is it because
they need the certification, but what's the main reason why they can't get certification? There's no standard yet.
So how did Tesla do this?
Obviously from that, because it was behind there, it was kind of safe. There was no danger in it falling.
Well, that one, but all the other bots.
That's because they had the shepherds around. I mean, there was a ring. I think each Optimus had more security than Elon. Right? They were around there making sure you did not get close or bump into it, and that's part of the reason. And of course, they're trained for that, to make sure that the bot doesn't fall over. For the most part, I suspect that I didn't get a chance to interact with Optimus the way I was able to with Figure. And the one thing that we discovered with Figure, you can see in our video, I was able to take the arm, grab the arm, and move it around and do everything. This was in an unpowered mode, so you say, oh, that's okay, this unpowered mode. So no, actually, the reality is when you have like a cobot that's powered, it can now start sensing what you're doing, and it's like actually easier to move around. So I was like backdriving that thing when there was no current going around there, and I was like, oh, this is a lot easier to do. I thought the gearing was going to make it actually impossible. So if it was to try to put a stranglehold on me, I could just easily that'd be absolutely no problem to be able to do it. So I suspect Optimus is probably the same, not being able to test it. Now there may be a few. It could be that I can backdrive this shoulder really easily, but the elbow, because of that linear mechanism, I don't know what the gear ratio is like on that. It might be that it becomes really stiff. If you grab it, the whole thing goes around. The biggest danger is just falling on something. So they had more than enough confidence. You can see there's two things that are going on. That they have some sort of joystick control to say, move forward, move left. And when it's doing that, the arms are just doing what they're supposed to be able to walk. And then when they're stationary, they're allowed to move the hands around. That's it. So the danger is if you try to combine the two of them, it could trip and fall over while trying to do something. So whenever they are moving, the robot is stationary and they're 100% confident it's probably not going to fall over at that point. And we're not aware of there being any incident whatsoever of seeing an Optimus even stumbling at all. Now, they did make very, very sure that it was walking in the pavement area. And I myself, a few times, almost tripped because it was dark. and there were like curves and stuff like that, and every now and then I did the same thing. So I think they were making sure when they went around that they didn't stuff on the ball. So it was a safe area for it to operate in.
So even though that it was teleoperated, you saw the way it moved and walked. I thought that was much better than it ever has been, the way it moves and walks. So
yeah, it's a little bit smoother. Yeah, it's a little bit, yeah, and more or less, the teleoperation on that is like move forward, move back, and then it's deciding to take the steps, as opposed to the hands are. That is like being moved around by the operator to say that's what your hands are supposed to do.
Yeah. So what's your take now? You saw the bot. I'm much more optimistic about this because obviously we've seen the bots, but this was the first time we got to really get up and close to it. Okay? It's the real bot. This is not the mannequin that you see at the stores. Now, it is teleoperated, but it doesn't matter to me because it shows you that even the Gen 2, it can grab you a drink and hand the drink to you. I grabbed the drink and it kind of let go, right? Now, again, teleoperated, but it has the ability to do that. That's the whole point of teleoperation, is to just test to see the hardware's there. It looked like everything's been done except for the forehand. Now you can see that's a demo, a prototype there. Once they saw that, they put it in. This is ready for scale, is what I saw.
Yeah.
And now the AI part, the software. So this is the hardware part has been, as far as I'm concerned, solved. I want to ask you, the software part is what we need to now follow.
Yes.
But they demoed that through the AI that's in the FSD of the cars. So,
yeah. So there's still, we haven't seen that much on the software side. It really was a hardware demo more than anything else. I knew Gen 3 would be there because it's just not ready yet. I was a bit surprised they decided they wanted to reveal the Gen 3 hand already. I thought they would kind of keep that a little bit more in advance for a longer period of time. The other thing that Elon said, and I don't think it's because he's been listening to me and stuff like that, but I've been a bit vocal. They say, wait a minute, like, there has been no one has actually seen it live.
Free. Hey everybody, welcome. Oh, hang on a second. I think I got a video popping at the same time. So we're in the Hollywood Hills. That's actually down there is Universal Studios. Don't know if you can see it. And here we are in sunny Southern California. I want to thank everybody for coming. This is going to recap what I think is so important from what we just went through. And I'm wearing my We Robot t-shirt and my Cybercab hat as well. I don't normally buy merch, but I did yesterday. So let's jump into this story. And I'm going to talk about, again, the new book and how significant this is. You don't need to see my face, but you can trust I am here. This story is called The New Book, and I don't want to be hyperbolic, but the product launch event was nothing short of electrifying. I really felt like I was witnessing a revolution in real time. The spectacle that was showcased was relentless. It showed the drive of innovation coursing through the veins of the extraordinary company that is Tesla. And yeah, I'm a Tesla bull. I'll be on with Herbert and team as well at 10:30. I'll be streaming on my channel and on his channel as well. And we'll recap some of the stuff. But the energy in the studios was palpable. Elon Musk was amazing. He unveiled a whole bunch of stuff. The future, the new chapter of autonomy, AI, robots. And again, this isn't a product. It's a bold statement about the future. And the future has arrived. Now we'll get into what analysts think, we'll get into charts, we'll get into some pricing models, price predictions, and all that good stuff as well. And shout out to Patreon. And of course, I'm just a guy on the internet. This is not financial advice. Before we get into the event, I do want to share Deutsche Bank's used some of the parts Tesla valuation. I'm going to come back to this afterwards, after what I've seen, and modify it with my thoughts on how the company should be valued, which of course Wall Street won't do this way. But the two things I want to call out here is energy, $53 a share, humanoid robot, $22 a share, robotaxi, $24 a share. We'll come back to that later. Now, I remember I did a little video yesterday with the team about our expectations. Now, my event wish list, which I had very high expectations going in, but we had, of course, the dream of an autonomous vehicle with no pedals, no wheels, and we'd be able to get in and ride around. Well, that happened. That was a total stretch goal. A robo-van, I heard rumors of this from multiple places, but I didn't believe it. Well, there was a 20-person van we'll get into as well. And then robots. I knew there'd be robots around. I did not expect to be interacting with one for 45 freaking minutes. Unbelievable. By the way, the team is going to make a supercut of all the content I recorded yesterday. I've got to travel later today, but I have some great footage of all sorts of really spectacular things, including a ride in a cyber taxi, including interacting with bots and everything. It really is quite impressive. But let's get into it. First of all, the Cybercab. It's gold. Gold is not exactly my favorite color, but it is this, and it looks just like this. It's really impressive. The scissor doors that we expected, just like the book, the autobiography as well. It's all there, and that's exactly what we sat in, and it was very comfortable and very spacious, and I'll show you a video of that later today or tomorrow. Also, the timeline. Most of the important thing was when. Is this just a vision or a dream? This thing is real, it works, it's autonomous. But they do tend to start fully autonomous, unsupervised FSD. Unsupervised means you don't have to look at the road in Texas and California next year. And a Model 3 and Model Y will be what it'll run in apparently so far. Also, Cybercab high volume production is expected to begin in 2026. So that's, 15 months from now. And you know how Elon is in timelines. I do want to say something for a second. I drove a lot over the past couple of days in my Cybertruck, FSD 12.5.5. I don't feel comfortable driving in Los Angeles myself, but I feel very comfortable with the Cybertruck FSD. It's so good, it's better than me right now. So it is stunning. And somebody asked me the other day, what would you pay for FSD? I told them I pay $30,000 a year, easy, just to be chauffeured around wherever I go. It also opens up new avenues to be able to travel further distances without dealing with the headache of aircraft. Anyhow, back to business. So that's the timeline. Also, Robotaxi Cybercab. Elon arrived in one at the event. There were 21 Cybercabs around, and there was another 30 other Teslas, Model Ys, flying around as well, all autonomous. The Robotaxi itself has no steering wheel or pedals, and the cost of operation is expected to be around 20 cents per mile. That's way under $1 plus, which is what an Uber taxi costs today, sometimes $2. And the estimated price for consumers to use it will be 30 to 40 cents a mile. So if you imagine profit of 20 cents a mile, and he said the retail price of the Cybercab would be $30,000, I, of course, had to calculate what does that mean for us. And this is kind of funny. So if you calculate what a typical taxi does, it's about 70,000 miles per year. That's 200 miles per day, 20 cents a profit per mile. That means $40 per day, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's $14,600 per year. And the ROI, you could argue, is 48.67. Of course, you need to charge it, clean it, all that type of stuff. And that's where it gets really interesting as to where things go next. So one of the things that Elon did say, excuse my very crude graphic of a Cybercab and a flock of sheep, Elon did mention Uber drivers today could become shepherds, i.e. they could have a flock of 10 to 20 Cybercabs and tend to the flock instead of driving. So they would come back to base, they would do some charging, some cleaning, maybe check on other factors, whatever it is. But that's the future that Elon believes. Now, if you've got 20 of these and you're making, $14,600 per year, ROI 50%, that made me think, well, what happens if somebody else kind of comes in and tries to buy the big fleet? So I did have a word with one of the Tesla folks, and I said, why don't you guys let shareholders have first dibs on picking up a couple of these things rather than a big corporation coming in and buying the whole fleet? Kind of like what BlackRock and other players do with real estate and stuff. Maybe not BlackRock, Blackwell, whatever the other firms. Anyway, that could be interesting, and people would want this. A fleet of these would be quite impressive. Then again, if you're buying 20 of them, they're $30,000 each. That's a $600,000 investment. But if you can finance it at a low rate to make $15,000 per vehicle, 300 grand a year, that's pretty good. Also, Cybercab as well. Tesla aims to make autonomous cars 10 times safer than human drivers. I can already say it's safer than me right now. And there's a new innovation that's no plug. They now have inductive charging, and Elon said, yeah, they should have done this a long time ago, but that's what these Cybercabs will do. They'll be able to just roll over a pad and charge themselves, and that will also be pretty cool. Eliminates the need for plugs, and these technologies will, of course, help revolutionize transportation and daily life. Another cool feature as well, Elon's joke was he'll remove the ING end lots from parking lots. This is some type of stadium, I think, and all of the surrounding area is parking lot. And basically, Musk envisions a future where parking lots are converted to parks, because there'll be no longer any need for parking spaces, just the ability for a Cybercab to come in, drop people off, pick people up, and on, without the chaos of huge parking lots and the cost of parking, which is ridiculous. Also, they announced a Robovan. This is a 20-seat autonomous bus. We saw it live last night in motion with 20 people inside. And this really does look like something from the future. It looks like one of those animals with the big shell. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, I'm tired. Apologies for that. I was at the event till nearly midnight last night. Anyhow, the Robovan is a large vehicle capable of transporting up to 20 people or goods, high density transport, and reduced travel costs to 5 to 10 cents per mile. Remember, the Robotaxi will be kind of 30 to 40 cents. This high density vehicle will be 5 to 10 cents. Again, another game changer. But the really exciting story, ladies and gentlemen, is this. Okay, Optimus. They were running around, many of them. We were engaging with them, talking to them. I was interrogating them, asking them pretty hard questions, which had very unique answers. And I know there's a lot of FUD out there, oh, somebody is guiding them and controlling them and telling them how to answer questions. No, because the speed at which they answered my questions shows probably not the case. Anyway, here you have Optimus as well, doing real work. And drop a comment below if you want one of these in your house serving you drinks. But this is incredible. Again, not only serve drinks, but also posed for cameras, wowing attendees, going back and forth with conversation. And I believe Tesla and the team have really, really outdone themselves. This is another one, sorry about the bad image, the Tesla Optimus handing out chocolates. People could choose what they want. You pick up, very dexterous, the hands have come a long way. Pick up a tiny little plastic bag and hand it directly to a customer. Remember, this is not trivial to do. The engagement with the customer, picking up the bag, handing the bag specifically to the hands of the customer. It was completely mind-blowing. And again, Elon stressed as well, Optimus uses the same technology they use for cars, including batteries, power electronics, and AI. They're all the same stuff. I asked a question yesterday, was Optimus using Grok? You'll see the answer when you see the video. Also, huge progress has been made in its development. The long-term goal is to make it available for $20,000 to $30,000. That means each family could have a couple of these, instead of, you don't need to buy a car anymore. You can just buy bots and use cybercabs to get around. And especially if you live in a dense city. And they can do things like, he mentioned serving drinks, which we saw, handing out chocolates, babysitting, lawn mowing, companionship. A big stress on, having them as a friend. And we know certain cultures around the world actually do a lot of this already. Anyhow, let's talk about Wall Street. And in full disclosure, I did buy Tesla today on the dip because I was mind blown, and I wasn't sure if we would dip or not. I was looking at put options yesterday, buying short-term puts for today. That would have cost $10. It would have made money if the stock fell below 230. It did. It fell to 220. Anyhow, the problem is the analysts. The analysts are still doubtful about Tesla's ability to deliver, and timelines. A lot of analysts are still talking about 2040. Full self-driving. I do it all the time. My car drove me 515 miles FSD. All I did was sit there. Okay, I have a chauffeur-driven car, and analysts still don't get it. And this is the opportunity for retail. I'm going to zoom out for
What are you doing? There's like spots way over there. What are you doing? Are you kidding me? You're kidding me. Move on through. Oh, come on, lady. Are you kidding me? There's spots right over there. You gotta be fucking kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. You're gonna sit here and wait for that spot when there's literally spots right over there. This is nuts. You've got to be kidding me. Well, this is befuddles me that you would sit here and wait like that. He's taking his time too. He's like, fuck this bitch. Look at him. Just want to see what. He ain't coming out this way, that's for damn sure.
looking at when we see some headlines, and for that matter, financial reports. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futurasa. Here we are.
Hi, Brian.
Okay, so big day. This will, yeah. Change. So, recently there was an announcement that Tesla is looking to sell $783 million in vehicle-secured leases, basically debts. Tell me what this is and what it means.
So they do this regularly. I mean, since I'm following Tesla now for 5 years, they've done this all the time. I think the biggest one I've seen was a $2 billion tranche. So what they do is they collect, when you lease a Tesla, you obviously have to show your credit rating, you have to, your credit score, sorry, for private people it's called credit score, and then you reimburse over 2 or 3 years, however long it goes, your monthly payment. Now this flow of money, the initial amount, the residual value of the car, and these monthly payments can be packaged in what is called an asset-backed security. And so the car, the underlying car, still belongs to Tesla, but the whole financial transactions can be repackaged, and it's been done. It very much resembles on what happened in 2008, right? Mortgage repackages, and it's actually financially stronger for cars than it is for mortgages. But they do it for all types of bundling of financial debts, and it depends on the credit score of the underlying lease holders and on the amounts that they are owing Tesla. So Tesla gets it off the books. Tesla is now no longer,
the creditor,
person that receives the money, the creditor, exactly. So it's off their books, the whole lease line is off. It goes to this vehicle, to this asset-backed secured vehicle, and it's repackaged, re-rated by rating agencies, and then put on the market. So who buys this? Typically it's money market funds, because it is restructured to then give you 3 months interest rates or whatever. It could be in different currencies, could be in all different things. I think that the Tesla ones are quite straightforward and easy stuff. So it helps Tesla to clean their balance sheet, do not carry retail owners credit risk anymore. So they don't have that. And Elon has always been very, very clear that they don't want to have that. They provide leases. And at one point, we also wanted to push them to provide the financing, not only the leases. And he was always, I remember a question he had in the shareholder meeting 2023, where he clearly said, I don't want to have consumer credit risk on the books of Tesla. And so this is one of those operations that helps to clean it off. It's gone. And now the astonishing thing is, and then you'll laugh about that, is that this trades like a AAA bond. So you have Tesla underlying debt. And while Tesla is still just about investment grade, so 4 big notches lower, the asset-backed packages, and it's not because it's so heavily over-leveraged, it's not that at all. It's just because in the normal market, people that don't look at Moody's and S&P, people that are a little bit more brain active, Tesla is AAA, of course. And so, Tesla can do that at nearly no cost, clean up the balance sheet. It's really great, and not have to cover any more consumer retail debt.
Wonderful. And this is very normal. Just last month, my mortgage servicing was transferred to a new company. That's not because the old company wasn't sound or stable or anything like that. It just happens. On the earnings reports, we will see subject to lease accounting. What does that mean? What's different about lease accounting?
Well, it's subject exactly to that your lease is either with Tesla or it can be sold, right? So the lease accounting takes care of who is now the owner of the lease package.
So does that money count differently or something? I mean, why would it even say that?
Well, they say it because it gives the analyst that looks at it a clear understanding of how much of that money can actually be transferred out of the balance sheet. So depending on how you analyze it, I mean, I would think, I'm not an auto analyst, but if you're an auto analyst, I think you look at that rate very closely, because Tesla always had very few leases, but Ford and GM and all these companies have a lot of leases, and there's a certain risk that comes with it. I mean, Tesla has this comfortable position to find easily somebody who wants to take the whole package and bring it out to the market at AAA, because it's really lucrative and very good. It's the best of the best. Now, not sure you want to do that with GM, not sure you want to do that with Ford in the current situation. So an auto analyst looks at these numbers very closely. I don't think in Tesla's case it has much of an importance. It's great that they're getting rid of the consumer risk. I think they could take some consumer risk on it, but it's just a typical thinking of Elon. Elon, I believe, thinks this is a company that will sell software as a service. Why would I bother weakening my balance sheet with a lot of consumer debt? If I can get rid of it, fair enough, there are people who want it, so I propose it, and then whenever we come to a sufficient big amount, usually around $1 billion, we throw it out into the market, and there's always a bank happy to repackage it and get it out, and it allows Tesla to stay focused on their main goal, which has nothing to do with lease management.
Right. Yes, that's a very good point too. So FSD, if you purchase it today, 10 years ago, whenever, some percentage of that is deferred. The revenue is on the books, it's real money, but we can't count it as...
Half and half now, I think. Yeah, go ahead.
That's my question, is how much of it do we even know how much it remains deferred?
I think we know, but I don't know out of my head. It's been a quarter, at least, that I looked at it. I think it's half and half. I think half is recognized and half is still deferred. I think they slowly moved up to half, but I would have to check that. Obviously, there will come a moment, and that could be 10-10, who knows, where once it is now fully operational, and once you consider this now as a risk that Tesla may want to take on also insurance-wise, that's a whole other subject, right? The whole other subject is, okay, so these cars drive by themselves. So what happens if there's an accident? As soon as it's not supervised anymore. So, and that will be the moment where they can recognize all the rest. I mean, the sad thing about this all is that if they would have just been able to, they were not, but if they would have been able to just recognize it as the money came in, they were not, because it was on this promise that it would work one day, so it had to be deferred. But then it would have been considered a regular revenue, right? Now, because it was deferred, whenever we finally have another tranche that can be recognized, the whole financial market goes, oh, that's a one-off.
Yeah.
So that's completely ridiculous. But I mean, it will come at a moment where anyway, the software as a service revenue will have started, and we'll see how big that's going to be then.
When a consumer buys FSD for the month, when they rent it, that revenue is completely counted in that month. That's very exciting.
It is.
And when you were saying on yesterday's show that Wall Street may be looking for a $25,000 car with a $5,000 margin, where Elon might be looking at it and saying, look, 48 months is 4 years plus 2 more months. That's your $5,000 in profit. Why don't we get excited about that? But I think a lot of Wall Street analysts don't get it.
Don't get it.
Don't get it.
That is it. That is it. And I think there's also the other type that believe that, fair enough, if Teslas are the first ones to drive by themselves, but all the others will catch up. And then it will not be something that you can sell at $99 a month anymore. Which, I mean, good luck to them, because I think that's completely wrong.
Well, no, it's completely true, because, once SpaceX started landing rockets, everyone has since started using them.
Sure, especially the Europeans. I remember.
No one's landing rockets yet. So, and it's right there. You can see how it's done. There's no secrets. It's just hard. And FSD is very, very hard. And the people who are saying that, well, Mercedes is already at level 3, they'll just expand that. They will not. The cars don't have the compute.
I read on Monday an article in the European press where one of the European ministers and a German one were really annoyed with the European car industry, pretending that they have something. And they told them off, saying very clearly, no, you don't have anything yet, but we want you to work and have it ready in 10 years.
Oh,
and I was
baby.
thinking, oh my God. Because they think by the end of this decade, so in 6 years, there might be full self-driving cars on the streets.
Well, I mean, that is true. There will. I believe that is true. I'm a little more optimistic, but all right. So I see a lot of times where I'll look at the financials of someone like Rivian or Lucid or Neo, and we'll see that they're losing money, just bleeding money from the eyes. And their faithful investors say, yeah, but Tesla lost money for a long time too.
True. But I mean, you do remember there's this chart. Tesla came out of the hellhole much quicker than they will, and they do it. It's not comparable. It is true, Tesla had obviously production hell, but actually, it should be so much easier for them, because Tesla showed them how to do it, right? And the fact that they don't get there is disheartening. I mean, even GM, I'm still hoping and rooting for the AEV program, but so much money and so many failures. It's I don't know how they're going to do it. I really don't know how they're going to survive.
Well, they had the Ultium, which is, of course, the final, and then they had the second Ultium. Well, yes. And now, of course, today we found out that they don't have any of that. They're going to go even in yet another direction, and they are bleeding. Yeah, but the Silverado just got a price cut. They're bleeding money.
And probably a new cup holder, too.
Hey, how cool is that? Not terribly cool. So yeah, I don't know what to tell those people, except that on a lot of these companies, they are losing money on a per unit basis. And if you're losing money per unit, the only way to lose less money is to sell fewer cars. And some of these companies,
I don't think there's any US build even that doesn't lose money on a single unit other than Tesla.
It's tough. Rivian might be getting close, but they've had to cut prices too, and that, of course, is brutal. And I would say that there are certain models, certain trim package. I mean, the Sapphire, I'm sure they're making money on a per unit basis, but they haven't sold very many because it's $250,000, and that is not a lot of buyers in that price range. Alexandra, thank you so much for coming back and chatting with us, making us a little bit smarter once again. This has been very exciting and very fulfilling, and we got a lot of answers. If you guys have questions, leave them in the comments, and maybe we will address those at a later date. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and everybody else, like, subscribe, do the usual. You know what you're doing, and stay tuned. Stay juicy. I can't wait to hear from you, clever robots, on the next one.
All right, everybody, welcome. So we are live. This is Cyberbulls. Everybody's here, of course. Alexander Mertz and James from Invest Answers. Also, we're going to have Xander joining us shortly. And Jeff is on the plane. He's flying home right now, so we'll wait for that. But we just came back, of course, last night was the big Tesla event. I'm going to go ahead and play the part that we all want to see, which is Elon getting in on the actual show. Cybercab. So they had 50 autonomous cars last night. It was flawless, and this was not some sort of closed circuit. There was people walking anywhere they want to walk. There was other cars. There was people in ATVs, scooters, bicycles. They were just driving everywhere, and the cars were flawless. So let's start with the Cybercab design. What did you guys think? You want to start first, Alexandra?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I think it was beautiful. I just want to point out, and we've got lots of people witnessing this, I won this bet, Herbert. I said it will be very close to the Cybertruck. They have learned so many lessons from that Cybertruck, and I think they've really implemented. Love the doors. I love the volume, the interior volume. One thing, I've been watching all morning these videos again, the quality of the images of the people when the car is driving, right? The rendering on that screen is just immaculate. You see the color of the sweatshirts, you see the design on the sweatshirt, you see the boot size, you see everything. It is crazy how precise it has become. It's a beautiful car. I hope we can order it soon because I really want one. Obviously in California, so we will be able to operate them as soon as they come out. I absolutely loved it. I think that was one of the highlights. There were a couple of highlights. There was a couple of deceptions. We'll get to that to a second. But while I have the mic, I just want to call out so many people reaching out. I know to you as well, Herbert and James. You know, coming to me, being grateful, appreciating what we're doing, our videos, the way we defend Tesla whenever it's needed. This is so heartwarming. You know, this community and how everybody comes together, how people interact with each other, so respectful, so helpful. It was beautiful. The event itself was beautiful, but also all these interactions, that's what it's all about.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, well, somebody lost their voice yesterday.
Yeah.
You're probably one of those guys, when the van came out, I heard people scream. I guarantee you that was your voice.
That was it.
Popped a couple of chords. But I'd like to jump on exactly what Alexandra said. So I've kind of been living a bit like a hermit since 2020. And I've never met so many people, shook so many hands in a long time. And the outpouring of, gratitude, respect was just second to none. So that was very touching. And the event itself, went off without a hitch. We had, when I discussed all the conversations we had with each other ahead of the event, I had my wish list, which I must admit it was a stretch wish list. That was Robotaxi, where we could ride in it. The Robovan was a super stretch, and a lot of the inspiration for that came from you, Herbert. And then humanoid robots walking around. I said another super stretch. We got everything. And I spent 45 minutes interrogating these Optimus bots. That was, for me, the most captivating thing. And of course, riding in the Cybercab as well. But literally, I was asking things like, how old are you? Where do you work? What's your shoe size? All that type of stuff. And people say, oh, it's scripted and somebody's controlling it. But no, not the way you watch the behavior. And pouring drinks, handing out chocolates. The future has arrived is kind of what I say. Hey, Xander.
Hey. How's my audio?
Perfect.
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. What's your thoughts on what happened last night? Are you, as a stock person, same with you, James, I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I'd love to hear what James has to say.
Well, first of all, it's always 80 to 90% of the time, there's always a reaction from Wall Street because they can't put two and two together. Second of all, there's always a sell the news event, and there's always an overreaction. So what we are now, like when it tanked to 218 this morning, when I swooped in, it looked like it bottomed. It bottomed probably. It could get worse, depending on how many analysts pile on, and then you had all the usual fools like Motley Fool, etc. coming in. But I think we go back up from here. Wall Street takes time to understand things. They take about 2 weeks to digest all of this information. But when you lay out all of the component parts of what we saw, and not just saw, but experienced, touched, rode in, etc., it's only a matter of time before Wall Street starts to say, you know what, this robot stuff could actually be real. This robotaxi stuff could actually be real. And then they'll take out the little pencil and the little spreadsheet, they'll start putting in numbers and saying, what if this all does happen? Where does the valuation go? And that's what people cannot reckon with. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I completely agree. Wall Street's going to look at the business case. They're going to want to fill out those spreadsheets. I had a conversation with my dad. I got up just recently, but he's asking me about the cars, and I'm like, Optimus handed me a beverage. My finger touched his finger or its finger, and this is the first time that I was next to robots, right? Self-walking, AI-driven, right? The legs are doing all the measurements, and they're calculating the balance. That part is autonomous. So having that experience and seeing, like Alexandra posted an epic video of like an armada of bots just walking out. Like, I don't think people are focused on the right thing. Yeah, the short-term stock, I said it's within spec. It's within spec. 200 makes a lot of sense. Go retest that. But Wall Street is gonna figure it out. But if you're playing the long game, which I am, I didn't have a lot of calls going into it at all. Just a little bit. It's all stock. Everything is in stock, and it's just play the long game. Look at what you're seeing.
Okay, so so first of all, the bots were teleoperated. You are speaking to a human. Regardless if that's the case, the bot was able to walk very much more smoother than it used to be. We saw the third generation hand. I actually did speak to a Tesla bot AI engineer, talked to them about the hand for about 10 minutes. And the concerns that people had was that if you switch to the form that they wanted to do, that you can't do 90 degrees, you can't carry 50 pounds, and it's going to break, the tenants will break more. The way he answered me was that, well, human hands can do this. And when you see that, they've solved that problem. So I think the hardware is now solved. We're going to see the third generation soon. So my evaluation the whole night, though, is that I came out, just to be very straightforward, right? It was a bit of a disappointment at the beginning because it was so hyped by the board members. Joe Gebbia, the board member of Tesla, said something like, if you think you know what you're going to see tonight, think again. You got Elon saying this is historic. It is historic, but it was like, all of us came up with all these ideas. Now, we can go through the list of what was right and what was wrong. I think we're about 50-50. The things that I think was there, you thought was there, Alexandra, I think we're about 50-50. Maybe I have a little bit more wrong. But at the end of the day, right, bit of a disappointment at the beginning, and this morning I woke up and I realized, my gosh, no, this is the future. So what we saw was an actual Cybercab that's actually going to go in production in 2026, before 2027. 2026 is basically next year. This is in production now. They also said that they're going to have 2 states, California and Texas. It's going to have unsupervised. This is robo-taxi there. If you are going to build a robo-cab, this Cybercab, in production, it needs to be at scale. We're not talking 100 or 1,000. You need to have, 50,000 and more, whatever the number is, like you would sell a car that you're going to sell to the consumer. So now that made me realize, okay, this isn't just, okay, a Cybercab will be launched. This is at scale. And you saw 20 of them. And you saw how it is perfectly built, right? As we look closely, it was so designed perfectly that it's going to be low cost, it's designed for scale, and yet beautiful and functional. So that is number one, and number two is the bots. Although we know that we haven't heard the details of the Gen 3, we don't know yet. Like you said, the AI was certainly there. But what you said, Xander, is exactly correct. We were interacting with it. It was walking in front of you. You cannot let a bot walk out in the public, interacting with the public, unless you feel like the hardware is safe. And that is the last remaining step, as I speak to all the CEOs of all these humanoid bot companies, is that they're working so hard to get them to be cobot certified, that they can be allowed to be walking closely with humans. This is, I think for me, the two things for me is that those are the biggest things. So I'm much more bullish. But last night, certainly, there's a lot of things everybody thought was happening. Wall Street's going to be very disappointed, because why? They were thinking there's going to be a $25,000 car. And I kept asking the question, where are you guys getting that from? Who said that there's going to be one there?
Well, they actually fed themselves with that stupid idea. I think we've all always said, why should there be a Roadster now? Why should there be a $25,000 car? Why Osborne? Why take away the theme of the day with something else? I mean, we wanted to talk about that, and I think the general white public was amazed, right? But obviously these penny punchers, how I call them, they would have needed now numbers to put into their spreadsheets and make sure they have a business plan, they have an outline, they know whether it is really $0.2 or $0.21 per mile. So the whole, that crowd was not satisfied. But I mean, we've been going on for 4 years saying that Elon does not cater to this crowd. The Saganagis of this world, he doesn't care. They shall do what they want. What I felt, us, the more, educated Tesla observers, what I felt was a bit of a disappointment was that there was no app, that there was no, can we join this network now as a Tesla owner? That whole idea was what I was missing, and also the business plan, not in the immediate future, but in the coming future. But it's great that you're showing the Robovan, or the Robovan, or whatever you want to call it. We can do it in all different accents. I think that was actually the biggest surprise in style and in size. I thought we would see a van 7 or 8 seater. A 20-seater, obviously not at all, no windshield, no whatever anymore, just like a cabin. Obviously, usually you see this type of size on rails at the airports or in towns. And now this is obviously not on rails anymore. It is a fully functional van. So this one I found very, very surprising. Oh, there's Jeff right out of the airplane. Can you hear us, Jeff?
Maybe not. He's
complicated.
He's got Starlink. Yeah. But one other thing, Alexander, you mentioned is very important. Everybody's like 25,000 cars. I said they've no way to dilute the message that's in the title, We Robot. But the other thing people were looking for was the OEM license deal, and I was like, no, this doesn't belong here. This is
wait. There was a big signal for a deal, and I'm not even sure whether it's only a license deal. That gets me to Stellantis, and I'm sorry if I'm going to take over for a couple of minutes.
Please,
lots of you people don't know much about Stellantis. I mean, maybe from the Ram trucks and from Jeep and Vauxhall, but the Stellantis is obviously this conglomerate of Fiat Chrysler and Peugeot Citroën 21 when they got everything together. So sorry.
I'm gonna just jump in to get everybody aware that the reason you're talking about Stellantis is because the Stellantis president was actually physically there in the event. So we were thinking that maybe they're going to come up and announce it, but they didn't. But that's why you're talking Stellantis right now.
I am, and I think John Elkann, that's his name, is actually a very important figure in this whole game. And we were always, Hyundai, BYD or whatever, but listen me out, because this morning, one of the reasons I got up at 6 o'clock and we drove home so quickly was because I wanted to make sure my research was good. But the first thing is, over the last 2 years, I have followed all these financials for my quarterly tables, and Stellantis was always the one of the other OEMs in the better health of financials, right? So that already triggered me, and I did a little bit of research. But one issue they have is, by this conglomerate of Fiat Chrysler, Peugeot, Citroën, and all this, they have a lot of overlapping brands in the same price brackets, sometimes even in the same markets. They are the 4th largest car maker, Toyota, Volkswagen, Hyundai, and then it's them. 300,000 employees. They're manufacturing in 30 countries. I mean, it's complex, I can tell you. They're selling in 130 countries. They are owned 14.2% by the Italian Agnelli family, and actually John Elkann is the heir of that family. This is one of the key people in Europe when it comes to family fortunes and dynasties. 7.1% is the Peugeot family. Then there's BPI in France, which is an industrial bank, and BlackRock has 3.5%, which is obviously lots through the index funds. So they just announced that the current CEO, Carlos Tavares, he's Portuguese, is not going to renew. He is out by the beginning of 2026. John Elkann, who is a young person, he graduated in the early 2000s. I mean, he's really a younger person, very, very dynamic. He is steering this whole Stellantis group into a new direction. So they have their Forward 2030 plan, where they want to commit 50 billion euros of investment in achieving 100% battery EVs in Europe and 50% in US.
them removed from the kind of short-term performance. So stock, unsurprisingly, falling after what we've seen. I think with where we are, I can very easily see a scenario where Tesla does have these multiple 6x improvements, and 12 months from now we're like, oh, it was so clear in retrospect that they were so close to actually delivering, and Elon actually said what they would do, and they finally delivered. And V12 was this end-to-end was actually the step change that they needed, and from there it was just feeding more video compute in and getting your compute cluster larger. And now that they've done that, it's not surprising that Tesla's able to get better than a human. So that's kind of one scenario, and I think if we find ourselves in that path, the stock is going to be absolutely crushing it over the next 12 to 18 months as it becomes apparent that Tesla has actually solved this. On the other hand, getting 1,000x improvement in your miles per critical intervention is no small task at all. And based on what we've seen historically, which is not, I don't think it's the right way to look at it, but the pace of change that we've seen so far doesn't necessarily give a lot of comfort that we will see this massive step change in improvement in that metric going forward. So I've been saying this a lot lately, and I'm just going to reiterate it again here. I think the pace of improvement in that miles per critical intervention is the single most critical data point that we can be watching going forward, because it's going to give us a very clear indication, I think, about whether Tesla actually can deliver FSD unsupervised in calendar 2025. And if they can, man, I think we're kind of off to the races, and the stock is going to be you want to get in before that, essentially. But that's very clearly not a given, and I think that's kind of why the stock is trading where it is right now, where you've got the bulls that can kind of see the path to FSD and supervised, and then you got the bears saying, hey, like, volumes are flat, margins are down year over year. SNX volumes are not doing so great, Cybertruck margins are not so great, and EV demand in general is weak outside China. So there's a lot of reasons for bearishness if you don't believe the autonomy story. So I think we're in a bit of tug of war between the bulls and the bears right now. Where my head is, I think in the medium to long term, Tesla is going to solve this out, solve the FSD unsupervised, and I think they will launch the robotaxis. I think they will undercut pricing on other forms of transport, and Tesla's going to be a very great investment in the long term. Not financial advice, but that's just kind of where my head is when I'm looking at everything that they're doing. Will that happen in the next 12 months? I'm a little bit more skeptical about that. Like I said, I can see a path where it happens, but I wouldn't want to be kind of going all in on call options or something like that, which is a very specific kind of time component to that. So I think lots of stuff I liked. Would have liked to see a few more things in order to get a little bit more meat on the bone as to how they did some improvements. But overall, like the design, like the styling, and if you're in Tesla for the long haul, as I am, I think you're going to be happy. Just try not to time it too perfectly. So those are just some of my quick thoughts. Curious to hear in the comments what you're thinking. And if you're curious about what we do here at Rebellionaire, you can check us out at rebellionaire.com. And I'm Matt Smith, and we'll see you next time.
The three things that were missed from my perspective. Tesla showcased a teleoperated humanoid robot that has use cases already. And I think that a lot of people are stuck on this thing has to be full AI. And I agree, full AI is going to be the best use case. But literally the entire event was like, hey, check out this army of robots where we obviously have people controlling them in some respects, right? They probably have a button for forward, backwards, left and right, and some canned responses. But you could tell that somebody was controlling it. But that opens up a whole conversation around, wow, okay, so now you could start leveraging humans to multiply their ability to do physical work through teleoperation. So that's number one. But there's a lot to talk about there. Number two, Tesla Robotaxi. They unveiled it as a driverless, no steering wheel and pedal vehicle, but I'm really stuck on the form factor because the way the car looks, which looks, in my opinion, looks beautiful, is still shaped like a regular car for the most part. It doesn't have a piece of glass in the hatchback, in the rear trunk, and there's a hard separator between the trunk and the front cabin, but regulations don't require you to have a rear window as long as you have two side mirrors. So that seems road legal now, and if they were to add a steering wheel and pedal to that vehicle, all of a sudden you have a compact car. But there is some tweets from Matthew on X that says Lars and Franz said that they're not planning, that there's no plans to add steering wheel and pedal to the Robotaxi, to the Cybercab. But like that bothers me because that's the Cybercab. The compact car is a different product of the Cybercab. It just happens to use the same exact platform, but with steering wheel and pedals and side view mirrors, right? And then we get into the question of manufacturing, scale, CapEx, trying to align and line up the timing of getting your Robotaxi at full scale versus the jurisdictions that are going to approve it. There's going to be a huge gap in getting to full production and everyone approving it. So how best to leverage that manufacturing line is by pushing products out you can sell today. And if they can add a steering wheel, pedal, and side view mirrors, all of a sudden you have a line that cranks compact cars. And I get what they said, but it's like, so that's another thing too. And then three, that van, regardless of how insane it looks and ridiculous it looks, the use cases for that van reaffirms for me and gives me more confidence that Tesla's long-term plan with that product is similar to the airline model, which is they're going to build the shells, they're going to sell it to people, and then fleet providers, even in the event themselves, they said, we want people to buy multiple products and shepherd them like, shepherd with a sheep or her sheep. My apologies. Although female shepherds out there, okay? So
their sheep.
Their sheep, thank you. So that means that Tesla is very much in the business of outsourcing fleet management. And with the van specifically, I think they're also going to outsource the layout of the interior. You can see that this thing has zero chance to be drivable. Like they're just saying, screw that, it's just a box on wheels, literally. But that opens up insane opportunities because now you have things like RVs, you have things like haulers of materials, you have things like minibuses, you have things like party buses, you have things like sleepers, and you have things like movable houses. I mean, and how that car or van looks needs to be customized for each one of those unique use cases because it has so much room. Like having a bus layout is a terrible waste of potential for any other use case you can have where this thing moves without a driver. And I think the ultimate model there is Tesla builds the shells, they sell it to fleet providers.
Yeah. You like it?
Yeah. Hey, I gotta give you a Tesla, bro.
You gotta get a Tesla, man.
You make money off this?
No, I pay money for the Tesla. No, yeah. No, it's awesome. It can, all Teslas can do this. Yeah. So it's called actually Smart Summit, and right now it only goes up to 270 feet. But that's like most parking lots, like HEB, Costco. And so it just came out, gosh, maybe a month or so ago. And so what they're doing is they're just collecting more data, and what they're going to do is keep expanding and keep expanding. Eventually, the thing's just going to drive itself.
So like if you drunk from home.
Yeah, you just.
That's crazy.
What I'm talking about, man.
Hey, did you see the robot they made?
Yes. You like that? The Optimus? Yes. We may be in trouble, bro.
That's what I'm saying.
No, it's pretty cool though. Huh?
Yeah, it is. It's just looking out for you.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right, man. What's your name?
Chris.
Chris? JC. JC. Nice to meet you, Chris. Yeah, it's all Teslas can do this.
How much does it cost?
This one right here cost about mid-30s, mid to high 30s. Let's say like 37. But with the federal tax incentive, there's people, and plus you can get this on used Teslas. So like it's software. It's not the car itself. It's not the hardware of the car. they do like your iPhone or you do iPhone. So you know your iPhone gets an update. These cars get an update at least a month, every month. You can get like a used Tesla for like $20,000. Yeah. And they all do this, man.
Is this a newer model?
This is a newer model. I just bought this literally 2 months ago. Yeah. I love it, man. Absolutely.
I've been hearing a lot of people complain about the battery life.
The people that complain about the battery life don't have one. I bet you, do they have a Tesla?
Yeah, they have a Tesla, but they keep on complaining about the battery.
Oh, do they? Yeah, there's no issues with the battery life at all. No, none. Yeah, I mean, it's no gas. And the electricity is a heck of a lot cheaper than gas. Real fast. This one here is not the fastest Tesla. There's and that and the Model S Plaid. That one goes 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds. Yes, sir. Yeah, but they're all fast. I mean, that's the thing about electric. When you don't have the engine, it's just the electric battery pack, and it's instant torque. So everything's better about it. The only thing that is a downside with a Tesla or electric vehicle right now is, let me see, how many gas stations can I count around here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what I'm talking about. But like, how many chargers do you see around here? Not a lot. So you got to do charging at home, or you got to go to a supercharger. So the infrastructure around it is still getting built out, but everything else about it.
So how long do this car last?
There's people that have, I mean, mine's new, but there are people that have Teslas with 400,000 or 500,000 miles on it. Yeah. I mean, there are Tesla. So you got to remember, Tesla didn't start even making vehicles till like 12 years ago. You know, the Roadster and the Model S, that was all like, I want to say 2000. The Model S was 2012, and the Roadster was a little bit before. But we're talking 15 years at most. There are people that are still driving those vehicles and have, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 miles on them. Yeah. So there's not a lot of, like, obviously all these other cars out here, you got decades of history. Like, okay, the Toyota Tundra, I know exactly what that's going to do. Toyota Sequoia, I know how many miles. Toyota Corolla, I know I can drive that thing till the wheels come off right there. Well, I'll admit, there's not a lot of history on Teslas yet. But there are definitely stories of people driving it, with the same battery pack for, 200,000 miles. Also, the thing is even if you got to get your battery pack replaced, like getting an engine replaced. Like if you had to get an engine replaced on a car, you know that you're going to come out of pocket $2 or $3. So I get it. People are scared because they hear numbers like, oh my God, if you got to get a new battery, it's $20,000. But those have even come down. It's like 6 or 7, and they just keep getting lower and lower and lower. Yeah.
So this is the only car you have?
Yeah, this is it. I'm gonna get the Cybertruck here pretty soon. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
You like that? See, I saw your eyes light up when you said Cybertruck.
Hey, it's bulletproof, right?
Yes. Yeah. I saw your eyes light up with the Cybertruck. That's the big one right now. And the thing I love about the Cybertruck too is a lot of people, they'll just get the plain, get the stainless steel because they like that kind of futuristic look. Yeah. But man, people are wrapping it in all sorts of different colors. I've seen like black gloss, drab black. People are getting camouflaged. What was your name again, man? Chris. You work right now. I'll tell you what. Sometime during the day, how about I'll bring it out here and I'll let you do the joystick. I got you for real, man. I'll show you how to do it. So basic. Come around right here.
I'm gonna text you.
I'm gonna let you. Yes, sir. And yeah, text me. I'll text you back. I'll let you handle the joystick. Watch the faces of everybody as you drive by.
Right, man. Say hi.
All right, Dave. Take it easy, bro.
got the regulatory approvals and the hurdles, which is going to take years. But ultimately, this thing is like a product maybe in 2030 or 2029 or 2028, where you have a framework to build the buses like the airline model. You sell it to your Spirit, Virgin, United, American Airlines, United equivalent for fleet providing. They customize the interior and they put it in the Tesla network exclusively to sell the product either through rideshare or a rental, or they sell them outright with the equipment, given that there's regulatory approval to do that, right? So those are the things that stick out. Those are the three things that stick out to me. Like, and I can't shake the feeling, specifically around the teleoperation of the robot and the compact car, which is really the robotaxi, but in under wraps. Like, it's being like, this is like a stealth reveal of that car. I mean, there's a lot of variables as to why they wouldn't want to sell it now and open reservations, but I can't shake that. Those are the things that I just can't shake. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, well, I want to start with the van first, just because I saw this here a few minutes ago, and I'll shout out Wizard of Doge is the one that I saw who found it. I'm sure there are others, but there were, I've heard multiple reports from people that said that Franz talked about different interiors being available for the RoboVan, and this was an image that flashed on screen inside of the RoboVan. And for those who are struggling to understand the significance, this is an Optimus robot here, and it is changing the tire on a Model X out of a RoboVan that is titled Tesla Service on it, and the interior is outfitted as a mobile service van. So, like, this is specifically based on materials provided by the company in the thought process of what the future of the RoboVan looks like, which aligns very well with what you just said. It's not just Tesla that will want to offer a service like this out of a platform like the RoboVan.
Right, exactly. The use cases for this feel unlimited. And there's new TAMs that appear, new total addressable markets that appear by making this fully autonomous. You're essentially allowing everyone to have a minibus form factor, and when I mean minibus, I mean like a literal bus that's smaller. You're allowing everyone to be able to have access to that as an alternative for point A to point B transport, or as a straight up livable space. Like the paradigm shifts. In addition to automating all the existing things we can think of now, right? There's two things going on here. You are automating the things that are going on now, which is transportation of goods from one place to another, and transportation of people from one place to another, which is like 99% of, let's say, vehicles on the road outside of, say, RVs, right? But you remove that variable, you can do that plus whatever else you want to do, right? Which is those other use cases that I brought up. You start, like, what percentage of the population is going to be like, holy crap, every time I go to the bar, okay, me and my buddies, we're going to hail the, dope party van, and we're going to take it from freaking, Waco, Texas, all the way down to Austin, Texas, even though it's an hour-and-a-half drive, okay? 6 of your buddies or 10 of your buddies, you're going to get into this party bus and take it all the way down to Rainy Street or 6th Street, and the driving going to feel bad because you're going to be partying in that sucker. You're going to have a good time, and it's going to be extremely affordable because it's fully autonomous and it's electric, right?
It'll be like less than $5 a person to go down there. I mean, we could do the math real quick. Elon said numbers related to the RoboVan specifically of 5 to 10 cents per mile, and that's
double it.
Yeah. Like, I'm assuming that's 5 to 10 cents a mile per person. I could be wrong there. It could just be 5 to 10 cents a mile.
It would be per person, I think.
I think it would be per person. So if you had, it gets to be nutty cheap, and you can do all sorts of group activities, or have your own mobile office, mobile business, mobile living space. All those use cases are obviously like front and center.
Even just like suburbia to the city center. Like if you take freaking the outskirts of Dallas, or the outskirts of Orlando, or the outskirts of New York, or whatever city that would be able to like realistically use this, right? Which is many of them. Usually people in suburbia don't really go into the city, number one, because it takes time, it's expensive, they gotta drive, and then if they're trying to go to the bar, they have to hail a taxi or go with somebody, right? So it introduces a lot of variability, plus you're stuck in a car, right? With this thing, even if you have to drive 20 miles, and let's say in a worst case scenario, it's 20, 30, 40 cents per person per mile, right? A 20-mile trip, a 10-mile trip would be roughly $2 or $4, and then a 20-mile trip would be $8. So people will pay $8 to go in and out of the city about half an hour to 45 minutes away, and they get a gigantic amount of entertainment, and they get to go with their friends, and no one has to worry about driving. And how much does it cost to offer something like that? That shell is probably like 40 grand, 45 grand.
It's more to build something like that, but yeah, it's definitely
not prohibitive.
You know, yeah.
So everything changes, and then RVs get disrupted because of this thing. Obviously, RVs are completely disrupted. You know, that's literally a house on wheels.
Yeah, it's certainly a disruptive factor in RVs.
There's years out.
Thinking about the conversation with Pierre, the challenge that you're articulating about lining up all of the the manufacturing ramp of the vehicles along with matching your supply and matching your demand and figuring out the technology piece of robotaxi, and then to Pierre's point, I tend to think this is very important for retail investors to think about in assessing whether they have the risk tolerance and the time horizon to stay invested in Tesla. Is that scale out piece. Like, just saying that Tesla can build robo-taxis and build them at scale and the regulatory environment be willing to accept them is not in and of itself saying that Tesla wants to or is capable of operating fleets of millions of cars on the road at scale. Like, there's a lot of complexity in offering ride-hail as a service in a city at scale, the way that Uber has, that has, is far beyond just the complexity of the driver that's driving the vehicle around. And will they be able to get to that stage where there's millions of robotaxis on the ground and they're, growing the fleet by millions of vehicles every year? In 2 years from now, like, I think that's highly unlikely. And 5 years from now, maybe. Like, I think that's one of those reasonably possible that we could see that end of the decade coming into 2030. We may not be able to get there. Like, there's still a Herculean lift between here and there, even though the progress of FSD itself is incredible. Like, there's a number of bottlenecks that, any technological project can run into. And when you solve one, that doesn't mean you're free and clear to the finish line. That just means that now you have to go solve the next bottleneck. Right. And then when you solve that one, then you have to go solve the next one. And so, there are bottlenecks behind the bottlenecks that we're facing today. And it's easy to think, as soon as we turn on the, Cortex cluster in Austin and we can just double our training and inference and test compute and all this stuff, that poof, from here to commercial robotaxi rollout is, 6 months. And I just don't think that that's a reasonable expectation. But that said, Tesla has an incredible track record of accomplishing things that people said were impossible, just a little bit later than the most optimistic among us would have hoped. And I see clear and steady and continued progress. And I'm super excited to see how they manage this transition into the next sets of vehicles, and what those, how close we will get a lot of clarity in the first half of next year, assuming that they do deliver on the timeline that Elon said. Whatever these intermediate new models are that are in between the current Model 3 and Y and the Cybercab platform. And that's supposed to get us to 3 million units capacity on, just using our existing factories compared to the 2 million units per year capacity that we have right now. So it's a 50% increase without bringing another new factory online. And the distance in between whatever those new models look like and the Cybercab will tell you, how close we are to that next generation vehicle, and compact steering wheel and pedals cars versus not.
So the thing you were talking about around the timing of the full fleet of robotaxis that are self-driving is going to take a long time. Like, true fully self-driving, no steering wheel and pedal, for it to propagate everywhere that it makes sense and they can uphold the production capability to be able to do that and push enough cars through the lines for it to make sense, right, and for it to get approved. I agree that that's going to take a minute, which is why the biggest question I have is, then why show it now? Why show it now, right? Like, why try to come out and show it on 8.8 and then miss the deadline and then try to show it in 10.10? Clearly, you're trying to show something. right? So it's like, okay, like I can't shake that. And again, I could be optimistic, and I could be thinking too positively about the potential outcome next year with the first half. And I'm definitely not trying to do that, because I agree with you. I think we're back to this discussion from like 2016, 2017, 2018. If you follow the Tesla story closely, the stock and the company are two different things, right? They are two different things. And when I talk about this, I talk about the company. I don't talk about the stock, because the stock's going to do whatever it does. And what the stock's going to do, my guess, not financial or investment advice, is that it's not going to like the next 6 to 12 months, even potentially even more, because there's nothing laid out from what Wall Street likes to see that gives them a clue from a timing perspective and a profitability perspective. That we got nothing yesterday. Even if they said Texas, California, 2025, okay, how many cars are you doing a supervised? Is that a test fleet? How many rides are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's still cloudiness behind it. There's a lot of cloudiness behind it. So from that perspective, I agree. But like from the perspective of like, hey, here's like the very obvious roadmap that Tesla is going to do. To your point of, from a technology perspective, they've outlined exactly what they're going to do. No one else is doing this. No one else is doing this. And so if they can, the question becomes an execution thing. Remember Dave Lee talking about this in his videos for years, right? And he was 100% on. All that matters is execution. The concept works. The business model works. The type of products you're introducing works. The market that you're selling into works, right? Everything's aligned. It's just doing it. You just got to do it, you know?
And in doing it, you know that you're going to run into hiccups and, you know, minor failures. But the biggest thing to look for is zoom out and say, are we continuing to make steady progress? And I feel like we 100% are continuing to make steady progress. And I think that, you know, a big part of why show the event is to allow the team to share the results of, like, so many different parts of the Tesla team got to show off to their friends and family the incredibly cool shit that they've been working so hard on for so long. And it is, you know, a waypoint that Elon is pointing towards. This is what the future looks like. You know, it's that let's come back as a team and remember what is the future. Like, let's put a stake in the ground and let's imagine what the future looks like, you know, 10 years from now if we're successful. And yes, it's like a small scale version of that, but you know, and this will get more towards the bots, but it's still, you know, a world where no humans were driving cars anywhere in this hypothetical imaginary world. And it's a world where humans and Optimus robots are sharing space and interacting, and you know, in like, I think the purpose of the teleoperation for the bots was to really provide the C-3PO R2-D2 experience that he was talking about, which is what he's driving the Optimus team towards. Like those person-to-person relationship interactions, talking to the bot and having it really talk to you like a human would, because, you know, in reality, that's probably an actual human that's on the other side of it, which, you know, is huge that they can accomplish that with like there's a huge technical accomplishment in being able to teleoperate the bot in that that quickly, in real time, and have such a natural interaction. You know, we'll set that part of the conversation aside for a little bit later overall.
Well, let's get into it now. Let's get into it now. Yeah, because I agree. And like, when you say that, what I think is, so what comes to mind is like, yeah, there is a 5, 10, 20-year vision that says this is what the world's going to look like. And this is what we're building towards. But what does Tesla do better than anyone else is that they know how to monetize the road there. They know how to monetize the road there. FSD is the perfect example. Even their electric vehicles are a perfect example. Because what are the electric vehicles really doing? They are building out the supply chain foundation for the next generation of energy transportation and energy generation systems. That's why the cars are there from the very beginning, is to get enough demand for batteries so that the costs come down and they can start putting freaking batteries everywhere. Okay? And then to get to a self-driving future, what do you need to do? You need to get the data needed to get the cars to drive themselves. How do you do that? You slap the self-driving software in the cars you sell now, and then you don't turn it on until you are comfortable that you have everything you need. And then you literally, your customer base becomes the data gathering tool and the profitability tool, so that you can justify keep making cars, and you get the data and the public benefits from the progress of that technology, right? To me, the bot's going to benefit from the same exact thing. It's obvious from watching the presentation, right? If I go and pull up a snippet from that presentation and we look at what the bot was doing. So what is Tesla doing, right? Tesla is showing that this robot can do tasks, even if it's teleoperated, to your point, right? Even if it's teleoperated and somebody on the other side doing something. That is clearly a useful thing to do. Pick thing up, move it. Pick thing up, move it. Okay, cool. So what is a realistic way of executing this where you can start monetizing this now, so you can start ramping up the supply chain needed to make millions of these per year and get the data you need to actually do those movements? You start using these in commercial applications, starting with Tesla, with a teleoperator that steps in when the robot doesn't do the movement correctly, utilizing artificial intelligence. Literally exactly what the cars are doing now. It's an exception-based data gathering system so that the human or robot can be fully autonomous in the long term. And how do you do the exception gathering? You start using it in your manufacturing process, right? You start, and there's the robotaxi. You start using it in your manufacturing process so that the person that's teleoperating, let's say that person is in charge of 5 robots or even 10 robots. When the robot fails and it sends a ding to the VR headset of the person or whatever, hey, there's an error, can you help me? The person going in and doing the movements they were doing with these robots, that is the exception gathering process. That gets sent to the mothership AI cluster of training. They use that to make it better, and then you start deleting errors. You start deleting bugs. And then you're like, okay, so this works now in a massive manufacturing setting. We feel like we have 99.999% of the movements figured out. Let's start selling it to other auto manufacturers. Let's start selling it to any manufacturing company. And then what you say is like, hey, we'll, you can buy 10 of these, and for each 10, we recommend you buy at least 1 tracking system so that you can manage the exceptions properly. And then that teleoperator becomes a job for this robot in the early stages, and then you keep introducing it to more and more use cases, right? And then that's how you create the automation over and over and over again. But what this means is that this right here, you don't wait until it's fully autonomous to monetize it. You can monetize it the second you feel that the movements and your teleoperation is successful 99.99999% of the time, and there's a market that would benefit from this tremendously, where they can cut their physical labor overhead by half or by 10x, whatever that number is. And then businesses care about profits first and foremost, right? How is this not going to have incredible demand even as a teleoperated thing? And the fact that they had it there walking around people, even if it's teleoperated, y'all, what that means is that they're comfortable with this thing not killing somebody. They would not have done this unless they were like, man, this thing kind of falls over sometimes. That would be a disaster. They had 2 people passing out just from being there. That's why it was late. Imagine the bot starts like falling on people and someone's got their kit there or whatever, or they're like, a shorter person and this thing just falls on them, and then they fall, they hit their head, and God forbid something terrible happens. They knew the risk. They literally brought in 2,500 people, Hans. They brought in 2,500 people and unleashed robots everywhere. And they're like, yeah, we're comfortable. What does that say? In a manufacturing setting that's super controlled, like the risk of something happening there is 100 times less than what they just showed at the event.
Yeah, so there's the unit economics part is super key in the scenario that you just laid out. And I think, it's easy to assume that we are at the, 1 person per potentially multiple bots point, but we'll zoom out and step away from Tesla at this point in time, and I'll transition over to thinking about figure robotics. We know from the conversation that Brett Adcock had with Herbert and with Scott Walter the other day that, they were talking about a lot of these exact challenges, and their figure 1, the first version of their humanoid robot prototype, like it took tons of engineers and then operators and everything just to get it to kind of do a task every now and then. And so you're talking about like the people that work on the actuators who are highly paid, and all these people to make this super complicated machine. But that's because the first one, they're just trying to figure out how to make it, and they haven't figured out how to make it reliable and scalable and manufacturable. And so it's the version of the Waymo where there's an engineer who gets paid $150,000 a year who's sitting in the driver's seat, like, except times multiples of that for your first one. Then once you go and you fix that one and you do your design revisions and you figure out how to make it way more reliable and robust, well, then maybe you can get it down to the point where you've got a team of 2 or 3 humans per robot. And then like the next one, maybe it's 1 human per robot. And then